Jesus said to them, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." Bread. Again. Last Sunday, we started into the 5-week bread series that we get every 3 years. Pastor Matt doesn't like it, so he's happy that I take the first 3 weeks. It's 5 weeks preaching about bread. How often can you talk about bread? Well, we'll see. Last week, we heard the gospel reading about Jesus feeding 5,000 people with just 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread, and ending up with 12 baskets of leftover bread. And this week, Jesus says, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." But why bread and not some other food? I think it is time to take a look at the origin of bread. Bread is a so-called staple food, prepared from a dough of flour and water, usually by baking. Throughout history and around the world, it has been an important part of many cultures' diet. It is one of the oldest human-made foods, has been of significance since the dawn of agriculture, and plays an essential role in both religious rituals and secular culture. According to Wikipedia, bread was central to the formation of early human societies. In what we call the Middle East, so today modern Iraq, Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, and Syria, northern Kuwait, southeastern Turkey, and western Iran, wheat was domesticated, and cultivation spread from there north and west to Europe and to northern Africa, and east toward Asia. This then led to the formation of towns. People gave up nomadic lifestyles, and more sophisticated forms of societal organization formed. Similar developments occurred in the Americas with maize and in Asia with rice. The oldest evidence of bread making has been found in a 14,500-year-old site in Jordan's northeast desert. Jesus said to them, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." After Jesus had fed the crowd last week, he fled from them because they wanted to make him king, a king who provides for them. First, he fled up a mountain, and then he followed his disciples on foot across Lake Gennesaret to the other side. But the crowd again guessed where he had been going and followed to Capernaum. Catching up with him, they said, "Rabbi, when did you come here?" And Jesus answered, "You are looking for me for the wrong reasons, only because I gave you your fill of bread. But you need to understand that this is not my main concern for you. Don't work for the food that perishes, but for the food that lasts. God, through the Son of Humanity, will give this to you, the food that lasts." But how do we get this food? By believing in God. But we want a sign that you are the Son of Humanity and can give us the bread from heaven. Like Moses, who gave manna to our ancestors. Jesus said, it wasn't Moses who gave the bread from heaven, it was God. The bread that God gives life to the world, and I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. Bread that lasts. Eat me and you never will be hungry again. Do we understand Jesus Christ, God, as a staple food? As elemental provision to our lives? This raises all sorts of questions. Am I hungry? If yes, what am I hungry for? If no, what has filled me? Am I ashamed of my hunger? Does fullness scare me? Does hunger scare me? What kinds of bread do I substitute for Jesus? Do I feel in my gut that Jesus is elemental provision, not an appetizer, not the dessert, not occasional dietary supplement, but essential, everyday food without which I will starve and die? Jesus invites the crowds to recognize the deep hungers beneath their surface. Of course, they are hungry for literal bread. They are poor, food is scarce, and they need to feed themselves and their family. There's nothing wrong, substandard or unspiritual, about their physical hunger. And remember, Jesus feeds them first with physical bread, without reservation and preconditions. But he doesn't stop there. Instead, he asks the crowd to look at what their soul is hungry for, at what drives them restlessly into his presence, hungers that only the bread of heaven can satisfy. Now, what are those hungers? A hunger for security and belonging, meaning and purpose, a longing for connection, communion, intimacy and love, a desire to be known, seen, and know, a hunger for delight, for joy, for creative engagement with the world in all its complexity, mystery, and beauty, an ongoing hunger for wholeness, redemption, and courage, a craving for the healing of old wounds. What would you add to the list? Jesus says to us, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. Now, it's one thing to name our hungers, but quite another to trust that Jesus will satisfy them. After all, we are very good at finding substitutes for communion with God. My substitutes are sweets, perpetual business, shopping, and social media. Do I trust that God is my essential sustenance every day? My honest answer is no. I'm far too busy, and Jesus, God, remains an abstraction that I tend to on Sundays, usually. Shocking, I know. And I think it is because I busy myself with the food that perishes and not the bread that lasts. Why? I can think of all kinds of excuses. Because I'm in the phase of my life where I'm crazy busy. Because I don't really trust God to feed me. Because I forget what I'm really hungry for when I stuff the not-so-good foods into my poor body. And because I justify myself with, sorry, I just don't have time for this. For what? For me, tending to my relationship to God? Jesus says to us, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. The Old English word for bread was chlov, which in modern English developed into loaf. In Old High German, it became Leib, and is still used as a modern German term for bread, Leib. Now, Leib has a sound twin, different spelling, exact same pronunciation, Leib, which means body. All Germanic languages have a word for bread that includes B, R, some vowel, and a D or T ending. Brot, bread, brod, bread, which may be related to the word break. Bread could originally mean broken piece or morsel. The history of bread and Jesus as the bread that lasts, the meaning of bread as broken piece, loaf as body. Putting all this together, it leads to the ritual we practice every Sunday, the sacrament of communion. Break this bread, drink this wine. And I'm glad that we practice it weekly, because I at least need it weekly, the reminder that I'm fed by God with bread. God provides. There's the physical broken piece of bread that I receive and taste, chew, swallow, and ingest. And then there is the spiritual broken piece, the fragment of understanding that is given to me freely by God. This is my body, my life, broken for you, so that you don't have to worry about proving yourself to me and others, so that you don't have to feel shame for being who you are, incomplete and broken yourself, a fragment of you, who you would like to be. This is my love for you. Receive it, taste it, swallow it, and ingest. Amen.